Idam pibute ratanam panitam etina sachena suati hotu. I remember once I was on retreat in Burma, and there was a woman in the meditation hall who was running around the meditation hall and flapping her arms like a bird. And some of the meditators were complaining to the sayadaw, to the teacher, that this woman was disturbing their meditation. And why did she have to flap around the hall like a bird? And do you know what he said? He said that she had been a bird in a past life. And this was her meditation. She was flapping. She just had to work that out. And there was no telling how long she would flap around. The causes and conditions, some of them may be from a past life or from this life. They could be environmental. They could also be genetic. There may be other factors involved. But I wouldn't let the mind shake if the body shakes, but just try to observe the shaking and let it go. Let it be felt like a release of some sort. So if you're flapping or shaking or some other uncontrollable movements are happening in the body, just make peace with that. You could try a different posture. You could get up and do some walking meditation and have compassion. It's just working things out in their own way. There are so many things that we have to work out in different ways, and patience is a good quality. So try to use that. All of us, in some way or another, sign up for delusion, and we make assumptions that are false, and we believe in this self. We believe in its permanence. We believe that we are the body, or we are these thoughts. We believe in our fear, in our judgments, in our opinions. We carry this Sakkaya Ditthi, this personality view, which has us locked in a prison, and everything else that unfolds from that belief creates delusion, a world that is tainted with deluded assumptions. And we live according to that. So how are we going to wake up from our deep, deep slumber? We need to wake up to what is true. We need to understand that what we believe is permanent is impermanent. What we believe is going to bring us true happiness and give us pleasure gives us false happiness that never lasts. And then we suffer because it doesn't last. So that impermanence of all these things that we create a semblance or a guise of permanence around, when we discover that they're impermanent and we suffer, we don't notice that the reason we're suffering is because they're impermanent. We still keep believing that we will get ultimate happiness from these false promises of the world. Because all these experiences of the world, every single one of them has these qualities of not being permanent and not being able to satisfy our yearning, our craving, our longing for what is true and what will satisfy this being. We don't realize the danger that we're in. So the danger is that we are stuck with our delusion and we continue to create a world of things that are unreal and untrue. And then many of us get sick and die with that delusion. We don't wake up because of our false assumptions and believing that this realm is it, believing that we are the body, or we are the mind, or we are some self. There's some intrinsic being in here, in this body, that is in control, but it's not in control. And that will last and last, and may come back, or may go to some heaven or some other realm. But there is no self in there. We cling to our experiences, our possessions, our homes, our relationships, our jobs, our leaders, all of it, our unhappiness, our fear, our anger. We cling to these as if they're permanent, but they're not. They're impermanent. And because they're impermanent, there is the danger in not realizing that they're impermanent and that they contain within them this aspect of suffering. That suffering quality in itself is empty of any self. But because we don't understand this non-self, we can't quite get to this non-self. We keep grasping for a self and being attached to this self and propping it up in any way that we can. Nice clothing, an experience, a trip, anything you can think of, a new computer, a cell phone. All our contacts, all of it seems like such a world of reality. But little do we know of nature that is ours. So, where do we find peace if there is no self? We have to understand that there is a way of being that can help us to grow in wisdom. And the emptiness of self is actually very liberating. We start to see that consciousness arises moment by moment. And in that consciousness that arises moment by moment, whatever we know also arises moment by moment. And whatever we know, whatever we see, whatever we feel, whatever we taste, whatever we touch, whatever we hear, whatever we think, is all arising and ceasing moment by moment. It's flowing. And if we try to stop it and hold it and keep it and not change it, we suffer. But if we understand the beauty of being in harmony with that changiness and not be afraid of it, then we come to a realization that there is no one there, that it's all like a magic show. There's something very liberating in that. To stop long enough to see reality, we experience a bliss and a joy that is unlike any worldly experience. And this comes through knowing the purity of the mind. Within this mind, nothing that we can hold on to, but it is a taste, a tapping into the knowledge of reality. And it cannot be known conceptually, not by thinking, not by grasping, not by clinging to anything of the world, but by developing this internal, intuitive knowing, and through seeing things in their changingness, through discernment, understanding their impermanence, through understanding the suffering of trying to have ownership or creating this notion of a self and acting as if this selfness is real. It is through selflessness and not seeking perfection in worldly things, that we begin to experience something of that sublimity, of that perfection, which can be only realized in the unconditioned. That it's not something to be known through the eyes, the ears, the nose, the body, thought, but it is knowable intuitively. And this is why we practice meditation. Meditation takes us on a journey inward. And the inward journey is not of the sense realm. Rising above, transcending the sense media through mental cultivation, we purify the mind. We can purify our diets. We can eat the best food in the world. We can be vegan, vegetarian, or whatever diet you concoct. That diet will not give us ultimate happiness. It won't even give us ultimate health because the body is death-bound. But if we're trying to aspire for the deathless, to go beyond death, because everything of this world is death-bound. There is no perfection in the world, except for perfect morality. If we have perfect morality, the mental purification, then it is possible for us to realize true awakening. So, to go beyond suffering, not just the stress of today or getting beyond the COVID era, but to have a diet of awakening, of enlightenment. That's the ultimate, most pure diet that we can have. It's a diet of the heart, an opening of the heart through purifying our body, speech, and thought, so that our intention in everything that we do or say or even think is always directing us towards that which is sublime, that which will liberate us. Through knowing the mind, knowing the qualities of the mind, which in itself is intrinsically radiant. There's nothing to add, there's nothing to get. We just have to clear away the cobwebs so that we can experience, as they say in Tibet, the blue sky of the mind. The mind is like the blue sky. It may be cloudy one day, but the sky is always blue behind the clouds. And the mind behind the corruptions of our thoughts is always pure. That purity is always available. But we need a map, we need a pathway, we need instructions, we need a training, and we need to step into the pathway. We cannot do it just by wishing it or by practicing half-heartedly or by signing up for 100 retreats a year. We have to apply this way of seeing and knowing and intuiting reality in everything that the mind touches through the heart. I'm talking here not about the mental workings of intelligence, but of the mind that is discerning, that can understand with sharp wisdom and penetrate through to what is real by seeing these universal characteristics in everything that we experience, except the unconditioned. That it's all impermanent, imperfect, impersonal. And the way out of our suffering is not through the best food, the best health, the best world. Even the world cannot really be saved. We want to ameliorate conditions and end suffering for people. We must practice these qualities of compassion and empathy and selflessness and social responsibility, knowing that this world is a realm for us to perfect ourselves in through waking up to the truth of how things are, realizing the truth within us and the power that we have to do this work. So this is peaceful, this work. This is the most excellent work. This is the most excellent food. This is true health. A health that nothing can steal from us. Because we are on a journey that goes well beyond this realm. You may not believe that, but what if it's true? Just take it on truth, because the Buddha was right. The Buddha knew. He really knew. We have to trust that. If we don't trust in the Buddha's awakening, then we can hardly call ourselves practitioners. Because we have to take it on faith until our practice reveals that truth to us internally. We have to take it on faith. And the whole practice is hinged on, first it's a blind faith, but it becomes an informed faith, a confirmed faith, as our experience of the Dhamma increases, moment by moment, year by year. But we need guidance and we need courage. We need to see through the sham of our anger and fear and be able to set it down so that we can walk this path properly instead of continually fighting with the fiction of these mental fabrications. And fear is a big one. But there's nothing to fear. There's nothing to defend. As long as there's a self, we're always in the position of having to defend that self. Always. How do we get free of that? By realizing the emptiness of the fear and the emptiness of the self. We keep signing up for our beliefs. But if we want to wake up, we have to trust the teacher. The Buddha did not engage in fake news. The media that the Buddha used is a universal one that has traversed millennia. He didn't have a cell phone. He didn't have an iota of digital technology. But the universal technology that he had could timelessly cross over to us without any signal at all, except an inner practice. If we follow his instructions, we can gain the same knowledge. How does that happen? We're trying it out. We're finding out how it happens. So in gathering here together, we can gain that same knowledge. His Holiness the Dalai Lama said that all suffering arises because of thinking about the well-being of oneself. That all happiness arises when we think about the well-being of others. This selflessness is intricately connected to compassion. You cannot separate them. The more selfless we are, the more we invest in this path of cultivating Buddha mind, the more we can really feel the suffering of others as if it's our own suffering. It's not over there. And we aren't overwhelmed by it because we understand that this realm is a suffering realm, but it's also a realm of freedom from suffering. And by really feeling the compassion for others, we practice harder to free ourselves from selfishness. What else? So that we can really serve each other. So by serving each other, that's really why this is a path of peace. Because how can you harm that which you serve? In the end, compassion, true compassion, unconditional compassion means that we forsake harm. That's the highest precept. It's a path that is distinguished by compassion. And it's a path of harmlessness. So the homework is every day, wake up and think, how can I be harmless today? How can I not harm myself in body, speech, and mind so that I will not harm anyone else in body, speech, or thought? If we can die with that kind of a mind, we will decrease the harm in this world by one harmless mind. So that's the homework. May we all be successful.